A Dilemma by Anne Murray. Mr. McCarthy was a senior manager in the office. He was well loved and respected by his staff and by the wider community. He was always very appreciative of his staff. It had become his tradition to treat senior female clerks to dinner at his house every year on the last Sunday before Christmas. Siobhan was a very junior clerk, so when Mr. McCarthy called to her flat on Sunday morning, inviting her to dinner, she felt honoured. Someone had dropped out, so there was a vacancy at the table. The trouble was she hadn't been to Mass. It was a mortal sin to miss Mass on Sunday. "No problem," he said. "I have to collect the money at this evening's Mass in Salt Hill, so you can come with me." Problem solved. She dressed in her best, and half an hour later she was on her way to his house. The other staff were already there, along with his wife and daughters. She knew the eldest daughter. She was about her own age, so she fitted in well. There was a welcoming bowl of hot punch to start the juices flowing. They all tucked into turkey and ham with all the trimmings, then the plum pudding and mince pies. Plenty of wine and beer, no expense spared. The party was in full swing when it was time for Mass. "Keep the party going, we'll be straight back." The practice of Sunday evening Mass was new and still a bit of a novelty. The church was pretty full. Mr. McCarthy, immaculately dressed as usual in a dark suit, gleaming white shirt and red tie, passed round the collection basket. His leather shoes beat out a rhythm on the tiles as he moved through the aisles. Mass over, they sat into the car to return to the party. The Burnmount Hotel was new at the time. "We'll just nip in here for one before we go home." He had a half one and a pint. She felt very grown up, out drinking with the manager. How cool was that? She ordered a brandy and ginger ale. They downed the drinks and returned to the car. He drove off out the prom. "You missed the turn," she said. "Don't worry, I've a call to make first," he said. He drove on until he reached Barna Wood. Pulling in off the road into the wood, he parked the car. She felt a wave of dread spread over her. What was he doing? What was he thinking? He was a roundy, fat man who could barely fit behind the driving wheel. Like a man possessed, he attempted to jump over on top of her in the front of the car. His sweaty hands were everywhere. The smell of his breath and his heavy breathing were disgusting. She thought of shouting, but her voice had gone. There wasn't anyone around that might hear her anyway. It was a dark, wet night, and she could hear the rain pounding on the roof of the car. Or was that her heart? She kept saying, "Mr. McCarthy, what are you doing? We have to get back to the party. Mr. McCarthy, your family will be waiting for us." As suddenly as he started, he stopped and sat back in his seat. He was like a Jekyll and Hyde character. He started up the car and drove, not home, but out to the 12 Pins pub in Barna. In they went. The locals obviously knew him well. "Fáilte isteach, Jim. How are ye, lads? Drinks for the lads there, Sean. A pint and a double for myself." She decided to drop the brandy and stick to the ginger ale. "Drink up, lads." Money no object. After a bit of backslapping, "Hail fellow, well met. Sláinte, come Mermaid Bio." They were back in the car again. Please God, straight home. No such luck. As soon as he sat into the car, he tried to roll over on top of her again, hands groping down her top, up her skirt. "Mr. McCarthy, we must go. Your wife will be wondering what's keeping us. We have to get back soon." The sudden sound of a car horn beeping made him sit back in his seat. With his clumsy, awkward, excited fumbling, he had pushed on the car horn. Saved by the bell or by the horn, she thought. Thanks be to God. When they got to the house, she was told not to say where they had been, just say it was a long mess. Nobody seemed to have missed them. The party was still in full swing and carried on for another couple of hours. Then all the guests were sent home together by taxi. Next morning on the way to work, she agonised about what would happen at work. If she was summoned to his office, could she refuse to go? Should she tell someone what happened? Nobody would believe her. They'd probably laugh at her and jibe her about it. When she reached the office and went inside, there was an eerie silence about the place. Groups of people huddled, whispering in corners. Strange men in suits wandering about the corridors. There was an air of impending doom about the place. Mr. McCarthy had been taken to the Garda station. He was charged and found guilty of stealing from clients over many years. End of his career. End of his pension. End of his standing as a pillar of the community. A sad and life-changing day for him and his family. For Siobhan, relief. End of her dilemma, worrying about how to deal with him as her boss.